Hello Internet, this is Hero Dungeon. In this video, I will cover some of the bare-bone essentials of Minecraft building. I will be covering how to start structuring your build so that they have more depth and how to make them more appealing to the eye. I am also going to show you some extremely important tricks that you can absolutely need to know to start building in Minecraft. These tricks are so essential. You can use them in any kind of build you can think of, no matter what time period or style you're building with. Without further ado, here's the first building essential. This is the first essential, and by far the most important. It is framing. Framing is basically where you put supports, something that holds up your house. I say that figuratively, of course, because there's no gravity in Minecraft, but even though this isn't actually what holds up the house in Minecraft, it makes it look as though it is sturdy and built into the ground. So you can transform your house from looking something like this into something more sturdy. You can use oak logs, or depending on what your build is, you can use different colors of logs or other framing materials, which can be anything with this vertical texture. I use logs because the texture of logs has a vertical shape. All the little markings on the logs go upwards, and so it's a nice material for framing. But as you can see, it makes the build look much more sturdy and strong, and it makes it look nicer overall. This is the second essential. The second essential is depth. Depth is an easy and simple way to add to your build by making your build have more depth to your eye and add the layers to your build, whatever it may be. Depth is an easy and simple way to add to any Minecraft structure that you have in your game. The easiest way to do this, especially if it's a house or some kind of building, is to take out your frame, just one block, and kind of wrap it around your build, the walls around your house. And as you can see here, it kind of adds this more depth feel to your house. And after you do this, you want to segment your build because from all these blank walls in the structure, and segment it up into these little mini wall segments. In these wall segments, you should put details, whether it is windows or flowers or even a garden or scenery outside of your house, and just do anything that adds to these little wall segments on the inside to spruce up your build and to make it look nicer and to add color and more depth to your build. And here I'm using glass panes, but you don't have to. Anything works. This is the third essential, color palette. Color palette is another very important part of a build. Color palette is just the term used for all the blocks in a Minecraft build. For this build, the blocks I just placed are all the blocks that I use in my structure. That is the color palette for that build. You can use a different color palette but make the same house, like what I'm about to do here. I'm going to use this color palette but build the same house that I've been using in the previous segments and see how it changes. You want to use, when you're making a color palette, you want to use blocks that complement each other. For instance, the walls in my house, as you might see right now, are going to be made out of stone, and it's a gray color. I wouldn't necessarily want to use oak logs as my framing block with a stone interior wall. It doesn't flow nicely together, and you have to find blocks that nicely fit and flow together and the colors match and go well with each other. You can, as I'm doing right now, you can make the same house or building but using different colors in a different color palette. And the reason you would do this is for the terrain or the setting that the house is built in to change the feel or the way the house looks and feels. And you can do this, so for instance, how to explain this is you wouldn't use my oak house, that is the original one and the other side, as a house you would build in the taiga. It's too warm and it has a cottage feeling, and that's not exactly what we're going for. And so you'd use something more like the one I'm building, with this more steely and stone powerful house to withstand the cold temperatures of the taiga. This is the fourth essential, which is scenery. Scenery is another great tool to use in Minecraft because it allows you to add color and contrast to your builds and to make it look more natural and flow with the environment and blend your house or your structure, your build, into the landscape and make it look natural throughout your world, and overall making it look nicer. And the best ways, or the easiest ways to do this, is to add plants and grass and leaves and vines and add them together and blend them throughout your build, like you see I'm doing here as I'm putting grass and leaves and just throwing them on top of my build, just letting them overgrow on top and put them everywhere. Of course, if you want a more clean and slick build, this may not be your first choice. You might go for more a controlled scenery, like a garden with grass and wheat and flowers flowing in the outside of your window instead of having leaves going over top of your build. Again, it's more of a opinion-based, whatever works for your build, whatever you think is a better alternative. You can add rocks, and you can terraform the landscape to go around your house to, again, like I said before, blend it in with the landscape, because blending it in with the landscape is another huge factor that makes it look more natural with your Minecraft world. And adding flowers and greenery is an amazing and easy way to do that. And it's not even expensive if you plan doing it in a survival world. And again, with a garden, you can add water and grass and leaves and just think of what it would be like in real life and try to recreate it in Minecraft. This is the fifth essential. The fifth essential is shape. Shape is a very common mistake upon most Minecrafters in the Minecraft community. It's very important because, as you could see, I'm not sure if you noticed or not, but throughout this video, all of the builds that I've used are those two houses, which are both rectangles. That's all they are, is a rectangle and one singular shape. And that's where the essential of shape comes in. As you can see, I'm lengthening out my house so I can add more shapes on top of it. So when you make a base, you always want to add and create more shapes that just go on top of it. It may not make sense in words, but you'll see in a second here where I'm just building out the framework and I'm going to start building out my house in that direction. And it's kind of in an L shape right now, and that starts to add character and makes it more custom and adds more depth into the build. And that starts to add a lot more appealing factors. And so I'll just keep adding the wall, and I'll fill in all these segments. And then after I segment off the build, I'll add details like before, and I'll use window panes, even though you don't have to. You already know you can use scenery or flowers or anything else. I'm just using them for this build in specific. And of course, you have to use all of the other essentials in your build. As I'm going to do, I'm going to segment my build off and try to keep symmetry in my build, because that's extremely important. You want to have a symmetrical base, and you want all the numbers to line up. And because if there's anything that's asymmetrical or not symmetrical, it will start to look off and it won't look right, and that's never good for a build. It's like killing the whole vibe of your build if something is out of place. And of course, there are great builds that involve asymmetrical building, such as landscaping, but for this house and for this video, that's not what we're doing. Right now, I'm building a second floor. If you want to, a second floor is always a great addition to any Minecraft house, and to do it, you do the same thing that you used on the first floor. You do all the other essentials in shape, and you just make random shapes on top of your house. You can even leave blank spaces of roof that you can use as a balcony or for any other purposes on your house, and it really will add another level to your base, literally, and it makes it look so much more natural. And as you might see right now, I'm using stairs and slabs to elevate the build and to make everything just curve upwards instead of having these ugly right angles just lifting off of the house. And it really makes it look a lot more slick and clean, so there's no very rock hard right angles that never look nice in any build. And the reasoning for this is because what we call nice in Minecraft is just realism. And I put that in air quotes because, of course, Minecraft isn't realistic, but we like to see things as realistic as possible. So this house, that's the reasoning we have framing, and why I use those stairs and slabs is because it makes it look like it actually has supports, and it makes it look realistic and nice in the game. And the shape, the whole reasoning behind shape is that it makes it look nice, and it has a more depth to the build, as it gives it a unique shape that no one would have used before. And after you make the shell that I just showed you, you can use scenery to even further upgrade the build. As you'll see, I'm just putting leaves and grass, everything that I can think of, to the build to add a nature feel on my house and make it look nicer. And this is really the ultimate test of all the essentials all put together, and this is what you can create just by using these 5 essential parts of Minecraft building. Now, I know this is a lot of stuff to remember, so I'll just do a quick recap of everything that I said in this video over all of the essentials, so that you can remember what they all are and use them in your builds. So, first of all, we've got framing. Framing is the utmost important skill to have in building, because you get these nice vertical lines in your build, and they add so much structure. These vertical parts that make it have sturdiness and strong feel to the build. And then we have depth. Depth is the way to add more shapes into your build to push back your frame, and then you can add details in the wall segments of your build and make it have more depth and make it look nicer. And then there's scenery. Scenery is just the green in your build. It's another color to add, and it just adds a more natural feel to your build. Of course, remember that if you don't like this rustic look that I'm using in this video, don't use it. You can make gardens which have a much better feel. And then there's color palette, which is all the colors and blocks that you use in your build. Remember that when you make a color palette, they have to complement each other in order for the build to flow together. And then we finally have shape, arguably one of the most important parts, which is just using that constant square and then start building off shapes off of that one part. And then you can use it all together to make this amazing builds, and you can use color palette to make totally different worlds of imagination. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching so much. It means a lot. Goodbye, guys. See you next time.